Thanks for watching a new update on the 1982 Kawasaki 750 Limited Rebuild. Here she stands, and as you might recall, I had a few things to do to finish this bike, primarily related to the carburetor, so I'll be going into a little bit more detail about that later on in this video. What I did in the meantime is actually checked the valve clearances again, and three of the intake valves, actually, on this side of the engine, were too tight. They were about 0.04 to 0.05, and they should start at 0.08 at the tight end. So I had, of course, still my shims that I had left over from re-shimming this engine a number of episodes ago. And I was lucky because exactly the shim numbers I needed I still had. So I changed out 3 shims on the intake side, and all 8 are now correct. What I did actually also see or measure is that my exhaust valves are at the wide end. They're all about 0.018. Which is fine, or 0.18, which is fine, but they are at the wide end, which is fine for the exhaust valves because you don't want to have them too tight because they could get hot and they could burn your valves. So those shims are okay. It does seem to make a little bit of noise on the front end of the engine with the valves adjusted at the looser end, but that's okay with me. What I also did was change out the cam chain tensioner. I bought one from Krieger actually, and I took out the automatic chain tensioner, which is already in this bike. I'm still fine-tuning the adjustment, so I'm still working on that also. With regards to the carbs, I'm going to need new carb boots. I did my best to make sure I don't have any air leaks, but I'm going to need 4 new ones. Besides that, what is an issue is that these cheap pod filters, they don't really fit snugly onto the rubber ring, which means that you can get air leaks on this side of the air filter of the pod, and so air could be leaking in behind the pod. So that's something I'm going to have a look at. Maybe I'll change out these pods for a little bit more expensive filter. What have I done in the meantime with the carbs itself? As explained, or you will see when I explain the inside of the carburetor, I changed out the secondary main jet from a 125 to a 130 because when I was at the top of the RPMs it would just flatten out and it wouldn't keep on pulling the engine, and so at about 5,000–6,000 RPMs that would be max and it wouldn't go any further. So I changed that out to a 130. I did see a better result. There was a little bit of a difference, but actually not enough. So I went to a 132.5, which gave a little bit of better experience at the higher RPM range, but still not sufficient. So I'm thinking I have to really start moving up. So I'm going to go to a 137.5 or a 1.4 actually. A 140, sorry, at the high end. So that's a secondary main jet. Now there's also a slow jet that actually has quite a lot of influence on the mid-range RPMs, and at the lower end of the RPMs, together with a pilot jet of course. Those I haven't switched out yet, but I'll be needing to do that also. What I've also been trying to do is actually heighten the needle with a washer. And because these are fixed needles, you'll need a washer, but then you have an issue with the plug. If you push down or screw down the plug that holds in the needle too tightly, then there's no movement anymore in the needle, which is necessary, and then you have an issue. So I solved that, and I'll explain to you that in the video a little bit later on. I'm not completely happy with the result yet. It's a little bit better, but I'm still not there. So yeah, there's a lot of theory about rejetting your carbs, and there's a whole graph, and I know the whole jetting of your carbs now is a matter of throttle position. So you know, the lower RPMs, it's the pilot screw, and it's the slow jet or the primary main jet. When you get into the mid-range RPMs, there's a lot of influence with regards to the needle height, and when you get in the higher range RPMs, actually the secondary main jet is going to be the thing that's going to influence the performance. So in theory it's all understandable, but in practice then you need a lot of time and a lot of patience to get it right. I'm not there yet. So that's what's been happening on this bike. I ride it every day after tuning it again, and then I ride again, tune it again, and so that's going to be done for the coming few weeks actually, to get it running perfect. Just a few more little details to do, but besides that I'll leave this alone when it's finished as a daily riding bike, and then start moving on to a new project, which you'll be seeing later in this video. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or remarks, please comment and I'll get back to you. Thanks a lot. Bye bye. I have a second set of carbs for the 1982 Kawasaki 750 limited rebuild, and I thought I'd just take this apart. This one is really filthy. It still has to be cleaned, but just to give you an idea what you're up against inside and how many variables there are when rejetting your carburetor. As you know, I have this modified exhaust, and also changed out my air filters for pods, so that's going to influence the mix of gas to air ratio. So when we look at these carbs, now they're actually standing straight up, as you can see, and I've actually taken off the covers, all four covers, and taken out the throttle valve and the diaphragm, which you can see here. Four of them are lying around. Be careful when you take them out, because they could be fixed a little bit to the rim of the carb, and you don't want to tear these diaphragms. They should easily come out, and if they're stuck, you can easily get your finger in here and push them up, so that's not an issue. You can easily get them out. But before we start talking about that part of the carbs, I thought I'd just turn it over, and now you see the underside of the carb with the float valves and the float bowl. I've taken off one of the float bowls, as you can see here. Here it is. So you can take those off. Be sure that if it's filled with gas that you let the gas out for each carburetor. It has a screw here, so that's not a big deal. And when you open it up, this is what it looks like inside. And with this Kawasaki 750 limited version, we have a number of variables. First of all, we have what we call a pilot jet, and that's behind this plug. You can pull out the plug. Be careful, because it's plastic, and if you use any tools it will probably break the plug. And behind there, in that hole, it's difficult to see of course, but in there you have the pilot jet. So that's one of the variables. Besides that, you have two extra jets on this carburetor. One is what we call a primary main jet, which is the top one, which is actually the same as a slow jet, and at the bottom we have the secondary main jet, and that's of course for the higher level RPMs. So we have three different jets in this carburetor, and of course besides that we have the needle jet holder, which is behind here, which you can take out, and so there we have the jets sitting in here. Now the standard jet size for the slow jet or the primary main jet, this one on top here, which you can screw out, but be careful to have a screwdriver that fits firmly in the recess to screw it out, because if you don't, you'll ruin your jet, and then you have to drill out your jet, and you have the chance of ruining your carburetor. And these are made of brass, so it's quite soft material. But even so, standard they come in a size 62, and with regards to this one here, this is the secondary main jet. I believe it's a 125, but we'll get in that a little bit later on. So those are the jets. Now, there's another, of course you can adjust the springs and the float valves and stuff like that, but I'm not going to touch that as of yet. I'm only working on the jets and making sure that everything is cleaned out. Now when we look on the top side of the carburetor again, where we actually took out the throttle valve, which is connected to the diaphragm, when you look into one of these throttle valves, I don't know if you can see it clearly enough. It's difficult to see, but there's a screw at the bottom of this diaphragm. There we are. Almost. There's a screw at the bottom which you can take out. Be careful, because you can also ruin this screw, so make sure you have a screwdriver that fits in firmly. And what you actually then do is take out this very simple plug. Let me show you. This is the plug. Now this plug holds in this, at this moment, very dirty, extremely dirty jet needle. Here we are. This is the jet needle. Now the thing is, with changing the height of the needle, either going down for less gas or going up to intake more gas, is the fact that these are fixed needles. Sometimes you have a little washer, a lock washer around them, that you can adjust the needle height, and with these carbs, these are fixed needles. So I'll show you a little bit later on how I'm going to deal with this. So actually, this needle at all times needs a little bit of play. You can move it around just slightly, as you can see here in the carb. Okay, well, I thought I'd give you that insight in this second set of carbs. And you're probably wondering, why do you need a second set of carbs for your Kawasaki? Well, let me show you right now. Well, maybe you guys remember that I was looking for a new project for the October, November, December, January month, and I just bumped up against this 1981 Kawasaki 750 Limited. And it has a perfect frame, much nicer than the frame I've used on the previous build, as you can see here. Besides that, of course, I have everything to go with it. And the engine, which will have to be rebuilt. So I have a lot to do the coming months. It has an almost perfect back fender. Amazing. There's not a spot of rust on this back fender, which is really fantastic. It has a different type of exhaust, which has seen better days. So the downpipes I'm going to be using, I have 4 of those. They still look okay. And I'm going to be adding a custom exhaust that I will be actually making and welding together with my brother-in-law, who has a lot of experience with this kind of stuff. And besides that, all the parts are here. I am missing 1 or 2 things. Actually, I'm missing the regulator rectifier, and I'm missing one of the pickup coils. I believe it's the left-hand coil I'm missing. And I'm missing the battery box, of course, to which the rectifier is connected, and I believe he sold that, and I'm missing a tank. But besides that, I've got everything here, and even in some cases 2 of each part. And so I'll be building this in the coming months. Side covers, which are fully intact, as you can see here. So I picked this up for almost nothing. I mean, it wasn't even as expensive as a dinner out. So this is going to be worked on these coming months. So then you exactly know what the new project is going to be. What I did do in the meantime, I wasn't really satisfied about my seat that I had on the other Kawasaki that I've been working on, and the seat that actually came with this 1981 version is much nicer, and of course fits perfectly on my 1982 750 Limited, as you can see here. And it's a little bit smaller, so it fits my butt much nicer. The other one is way too wide, it's too big for me. So this is a little bit nicer, it looks a lot nicer. So I put that seat onto the 1982 Kawasaki, and you know, this is going to be a very bare-boned bike. I'm only going to put on the necessary things, and it's going to be really something else. I hope it doesn't look like a Kawasaki 750 Limited at all once I'm finished with this rebuild. So then at least you know why I have 2 carbs, and you immediately know what my next project will be. So let's continue with the carbs. Right, well, let's get back to these carbs. Like I mentioned, we have a primary main jet. That's the top one here. You can just take that out. Here we have it. No problem whatsoever. It has a very little hole in the center. Often those are plugged up, so that can be taken out easily to clean. Now we have here the secondary main jet, which you can screw out. It's a very little jet, also with a hole in the center, of course, and a number on the jet stating what size it is. And on this old carb, the original jet is actually a 125, as expected. And the needle jet holder needs an 8mm wrench, and you can loosen that up and actually just unscrew it out of the carb, and here it comes. And it has a lot of little holes that can get clogged up easily, and I'm just looking into the light and I can see absolutely nothing. So these are extremely filthy. So it's not that big of an issue to actually take out the needle jet holder and the different jets. Let me just quickly put them back in so we don't lose them, and I'll get back to you on the pilot jet that's buried all the way in there. Right, well, with regards to this pilot jet, which is actually screwed in this hole, which is behind the plug that you can take out carefully. Make sure you use a screwdriver that fits in snugly into that pilot jet, because you don't want to wreck the pilot jet. And once it's screwed loose, just turn around your carb and just let it drop out. There's nothing more to that. So here we have actually the pilot jet. That's about it for the jets at this moment. Well, like I mentioned, the needle needs a little bit of play. As you can see here, it's a little bit loose in the valve throttle, and this one I just put in the ring and screw down the plug again without doing anything else, and you can see now that the needle is actually completely fixed to the valve throttle. There's no play anymore. So let me take out the plug again and use a little bit of thread sealing tape so I can seat down the plug just enough to keep the needle in the valve throttle and also have enough play in the needle itself. Here you see the little plug wrapped in the thread tape. Wrap it in counterclockwise as you'll be screwing the plug in clockwise. So let's seat down this needle far enough so that it sits firmly and still has sufficient play in the needle itself. Well, as you can see here, the valve plug is firmly back in place, and there's still sufficient play in the needle, as you can see. Plug is back in. Now this is an ideal solution. It is a little bit crude, of course, so it's now just meant to adjust this carburetor so I know where I need to go with the adjustments I need to make, and eventually afterwards, once I get the adjustments right, I'll work on perfectioning this this needle here in the valve throttle. But this is just to give you an idea how you could go about doing it. Well, before I forget, I thought I'd just show you the new cam chain tensioner from Krieger. There it is. I did have some video footage of it while I was putting it in and adjusting it, and I lost the video off my memory card, so here at least is the final setup, and it actually replaced the automatic cam chain tensioner, which is still lying over here. Here we have it. This is the automatic cam chain tensioner, which I replaced for the Krieger.